Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. I believe it's episode 179. Dave Maxson, your host, here with you, along with my brother Aaron.
Hello.
And Mr. Archie Mitchell.
What's up?
Yeah, how's it going out there tonight, guys? Other than, I don't know how it is in Jersey, Archie, but it is windy as fuck.
Same here. It's 25 degrees, windy, and it's raining every now and then. There's no call for rain, but it's just raining.
Yeah.
So.
I was expecting internet problems because I don't know why, but for some reason where we live, the wind can affect the internet. I haven't figured that one out yet.
No, it affects it here too. So don't just feel it's Ohio. You know, if I used to have a running joke with the satellite people when I had a satellite TV, because it would get windy and I understood the satellite would move, but it would stay in the same direction because I would check it on my TV to see where it was pointing. And they'd be like, well, no, the wind affected. I'm like, but how bad could it affect it?
Right.
It's not moving. It didn't blow off my roof. You know what I mean? So.
I guess these are things we will never understand.
No, that's why we don't work for those companies.
Exactly. But yeah, this week on the show, we are continuing. And this one actually wasn't as... okay, so there's a reason why this show is on the... as we called it, the fall of fuckery, but we're now in the winter. But talking about bad shows, the reason I classified this one as a bad show, there were a couple of things. But in reality, it's not a terrible show.
It's a solid bad, yeah.
Fall Brawl, 1995, WCW. And Aaron, anything before we start talking about Fall Brawl?
Not really. I really don't have anything. Sorry.
No, that's all right. The reason, and I'll say this now, and we'll get into it later. The reason that I kind of classify this one on the bad show part. I mean, obviously, it's not New Blood Rising, which we discussed on the last episode, which is the worst wrestling pay-per-view of all time. That's the determination we came to.
Jeez.
The reason I put this one up there is because this one has. It's the what do I want to say? It's the peak of the Hulk Hogan centric booking of WCW,
right? Which
means that the War Games was used very cartoonish,
without a
doubt. That's one of the things that puts this on a bad scale for me. And there's one other thing too, well, a couple other things too, but we will get into that. So again, just go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to say, when we watched ECW December to Dismember, and we were like, this show is actually better than what the narrative is of it and everything like that. And like I said, this isn't a current product podcast, but that's the other thing of it too, is that at the time and you're watching it, you're like, oh, you know what I mean? Because some of this is this is a tired trope. Years, and at this time in 94, like you said, it was the Hogan era thing, and that was done. People our age did not want to continue seeing Hulk Hogan wrestle Kamala and Earthquake and Zodiac. We didn't want to see that anymore. We wanted to see what ECW was doing, or you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But looking at it back now, you're like, this is still kind of better than what is on TV now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
For pretty much every company. WWE's getting better, but I mean,
in the time you just sometimes remember things as a kid, good or bad. You know what I mean? There's, and I won't talk too much about it now, but and it's the flip side too. There's things that I really liked when I was a kid or a teenager, music or television wise, and I watch it or listen to it now, and I'm like, why did I like this?
Right.
You know what I mean? When I was a kid, I was a big fan of the band 311, and I've gotten older, and I'm like, this band sucks. You know what I mean?
Great, he's here.
Mark Brew has joined us.
Yes, sir.
Prime example.
I don't know if that's rambling or doesn't make any sense.
I was going to say prime example for me was it's been more than a few years ago because my son's 20 now. But back when he was 10 years old, I was like, oh, buddy, on Amazon Prime, one of Dad's favorite cartoons when he was a kid. We're gonna watch it together, and it was Masters of the Universe.
Right.
And we
Oh,
and
God.
we watched like 2 episodes, and I was like, I'm sorry, buddy, you don't have to watch this anymore because it's fucking terrible. Why did I like that when I was a kid?
Mine was
Like you're apologizing now for shit you liked back then.
Mine was I tried to watch the Mario Brothers Super Show with Lou Albano as Mario and then the cartoon and everything. I'm like, oh, this is bad.
To answer Nate's question though, because we were 5 and put in front of a television and told watch this.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay.
I think with Masters of the Universe for me it was because the cartoon, and that was their point. The cartoon directly correlated to the action figures that I had.
It was meant to sell toys, right? It was like they had the toys ready to go. We got to come up with a cartoon. We got to come up with a cartoon.
And I didn't realize it at the time because I was 5 years old or whatever,
right?
6 years old. But they were just selling me action figures, and that's fine. Now, one that does hold up, and we'll stop rambling and we'll talk about Fall Brawl, but one that definitely does hold up that I can still watch. I have the whole DVD set. The G.I. Joe cartoon still holds up.
Yes.
That one's great. It's got, I don't know. It's just it's much more well thought out.
Well, it was right. It was a more well thought out because I guess they were trying to show you how great the Army was and the Navy. You know what I mean? It was about military and things like that. So for them to make it too cartoony, it wasn't going to reach what they wanted because let's face it, that was a giant "Hey, Uncle Sam wants you" ad.
Right.
At the end of the day,
And G.I. Joe has cool villains. And anything that has cool villains is cool.
Right. But as a kid, I didn't like. See, this is the bad part. And I'm sorry to get off base for a second, but I'm sure we all felt this way. As a kid, I didn't like the villains. As a kid, I was a G.I. Joe kid. You know what I mean? Same way I was a Hulk Hogan fan. I was a, you know what I mean? I was an Ultimate Warrior fan.
Nah, and I was a villain guy even as a kid.
Really? Yeah. Damn. So it was just me.
I was totally about the heels in every aspect of everything.
So I was the only pussy who liked the faces? Okay. Fine. I'll take it.
I wanted to be able to just go by and just smack some other kid in the head and just go Cobra.
That's good. I like it.
Or like me, even back then, I was a Star Wars geek. I wanted to be like the Emperor, like good. Come to the dark side of the Force. But anyway, getting back to pro wrestling here, we're talking about Fall Brawl 1995, Asheville, North Carolina. Big stomping grounds for WCW.
Yes.
And
Flair Country.
September 17th, 1995, 6,600 in attendance for Fall Brawl. And the opening video airs, and it's your standard WCW opening video. Looks like it was made by a high school AV club. I don't know why. They had a huge television production company, but they just did not put the effort into these videos for WCW. Now, there is a video coming up that's one of my favorites of all time, but we'll get to that later on for different reasons. But the opening match, really good match. It is Brian Pillman against Johnny B. Bad, and the winner will receive a shot at Sting's WCW United States Championship. This was a great match.
They went all out, Nate. They were not, if the statement, they're not holding anything back here. They were like putting each other to the test. Pillman has always been one of my favorites, and Johnny B. Bad, in the beginning part of his career, he was that cartoony, I want to be Little Richard guy. But when he finally took off most of the makeup and he just started being a wrestler, you know what I mean? He was much better, So I really enjoyed this match from beginning to end.
I'm not gonna lie, you guys. I started watching these shows and I got ahead of myself. But so reading some of my notes, it's making me laugh. I was a little tipsy. I do remember that. I was a little drunk when I was watching this. My first note is Johnny B. Bad botched throwing a frisbee. It's he's throwing. He botches throwing a frisbee, he tries to throw it down to people and he hits the ropes. So my first note is Johnny B. Bad botched throwing a frisbee. Fucking dink. But anyway, but the match itself is actually and is actually really good.
Mark Marrow, say what you will about him. When he before his knee injury in 97, well, late 96, early 97, sometimes his personality could be pretty grating, okay? I was not a huge fan of his personality, but when the bell rang, the guy was actually pretty fucking good.
Yes. Yes. For a guy, 250, he could fly.
Yes. And like I said, I was never a big fan of his promos and stuff and all that. And, especially in the WWF, I'm going to get wild. But
he was
anyway,
terrible in the WWF.
But, I mean, once the bell rang, it's like they have that expression where they say, hey, that guy's a great personality, but once the bell rings, it's kind of the opposite with Johnny B. Bad with me. Like, I will fast forward past his promos, but I definitely watch his matches, And he held up his end with Brian Pillman in this match. I don't think Brian Pillman carried him at all.
No, to me, it's. I don't think he carried him, but I think Mark Marrow is the guy. He's the guy. How do I say it? I think he works instead of making people work his style. He kind of works to whoever he's in the ring.
I could agree with that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Being like, you're gonna go out there and we're gonna have the best goddamn match we can have. He's just like, okay, let's do what you can do, and we'll get through it. To me, that's what I've gathered from his matches and stuff.
The good part about these guys is they had similar styles, a little bit on the ground, a little bit in the air, mostly trying to knock their opponent out. So they meshed well. They had a great chemistry throughout the entire match. There was no moment where you went, okay, he fucked up, and now Pillman's going to beat the crap out of him because he messed up. They were on an even keel.
Mark, your opinion?
I knew from the beginning of this match to the end of this match that this was going to be one long ass show. Ask Archie. I texted him and I was
I mentioned that to him before we started.
So long.
And you said, why was this such a long curtain jerker? And I finally thought of an answer for you because I laughed when you said it. They didn't have the cruiserweights yet, so they didn't have that 15-minute match that they could put on with a Rey Mysterio and a Dean Malenko, you know what I mean, or a six-man tag somewhere along the match, the card. So they told these guys, look, we got 5 or 6 matches on this card, and we got to kill 2.5 hours before we get to Hogan. So just go out there and give us your best. And they did.
Well, for a year, that was Johnny's job. If you watched WCW pay-per-views, it was Mark Marrow's job to open up the show. Because it makes sense, because he can have a good match, and his character is like flamboyant and flashy and shit like that.
And the crowd loved him.
Yeah, so right out the bat, like right out the chute, there's this like charismatic, glittery guy shooting fucking streamers and shit. So it gets the people going. It was his job. I mean, how many pay-per-views opened with Diamond Dallas Page versus Johnny B. Bad in 1994? Right. You know what I'm saying? Like that was his gig.
And to answer Mark's curtain jerker question, also keep in mind at this period of time, there was a show that was on before each pay-per-view, the main event.
Yep.
So actually your opening match for the show was during that broadcast, so I guess I'm not, I know on the pay-per-view, this was the opening match, but for the crowd, this was like the 4th or 5th match, so.
So yeah, they were probably ready to see a 30-minute match. Then.
Right.
I was just like, holy hell.
Well, let me look real quick here. Just, I'll bring up the Wikipedia. So here's what the crowd saw before we got to Johnny B. Bad and Brian Pillman. Big Bubba Rogers defeated Mark Thorne.
Ooh.
Disco Inferno defeated Joey Maggs.
God.
Alex Wright wrestled Eddie Guerrero to a no contest, which sounds great, but it was only 6 minutes long.
Still probably good.
The American Males defeated the Nasty Boys. So there you go. That's what you had those matches.
There were 5 matches. That was the 5th match. So they were about ready for a barn burner, I reckon.
But it essentially goes to a 20-minute time limit, and they go into overtime. And
reason being is the backstory. The reason they actually go into overtime is because there has to be a winner, because the winner is facing Sting for the United States Championship.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the match. I was just like, holy hell, this is long.
And Johnny B. Bad goes over here, and he's going to be wrestling Sting on Nitro for the
Now-
US title, but that's not part of our show.
Nate, I had a small, and I wasn't mad at it, but it bothered me slightly. The finish, because they both collided mid-ring, which we've seen that spot a million times in matches where both guys go for a splash and both guys nail each other in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And then B. Bad actually hangs on and then just doesn't even hook Pillman's leg. He just puts his body on Pillman and just like, okay, the match is over. And I get it. They went at it for 30 minutes. It was a tough match. But I would have liked to have seen, at least a leg hook, because it was just like, okay, Pillman just gave up. You know what I mean? After 30 great minutes, Pillman was like, take it, pin me, I'm done.
Speaking of Johnny B. Bad and finishes, it's just out of the blue. One of my favorite finishes in wrestling history involves Johnny B. Bad.
Okay.
It is on a random episode of WCW Saturday Night, I think from like 94 or 95. And Johnny B. Bad comes off the top rope to do the, it's like the sunset flip, but off the top rope to pin the guy. So he comes off the top rope to do that to whoever his opponent was. I don't even remember who it was. And he accidentally did it to referee Mark Curtis. So then Mark Curtis disqualifies Johnny B. Bad.
Oh my
God. I was
God.
like, that is a fun ass finish. Like, I will never forget that. And I don't know. I haven't ever been able to find it again. It's on, like I said, it was on some random WCW Saturday Night. I don't remember who Johnny B. Bad wrestled, so I can't find the match. But yeah, I always thought that was like, that is a neat ass finish. And I bet Mark Curtis came up with it because he was a smart dude.
Right.
Brian Hildebrand. But yeah, anyway, random, I know, but. All right, so the next match on this show, we go from sugar to shit here.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
Is that I said? I got my notes.
Oh no, yeah, the Flair promo's next. Sorry,
I don't have any notes on the actual Flair interview. The only thing I got is in 1995, Mean Gene Okerlund was starting to look like the BTK killer.
I agree. He looked weird through this whole show.
He looked like the BTK killer.
He looked rattled. I don't know. He looked bothered. Yeah,
yes.
I get it.
Yeah. Sparky big time. Did you know that's what he called? That's what he called like the climax. Not getting too far into the weeds here. That's what BTK called like the thrill of his kill. Like like people be like, "Oh man, I was so jacked. I was this or that or whatever." In his notes, like he's Sparky big time. That's what he called it.
Sparky big time.
But anyway, Gene looks like Sparky big time BTK.
Well, he's interviewing Ric Flair about one of the biggest mistakes anybody ever made in booking Ric Flair. How stupid an idea, and we'll get to it when we get to the match, but how stupid of an idea was it to have Ric Flair wrestle Arn Anderson?
Neither one of them wanted to do it.
No.
I agree with you to a certain extent. But all the other horsemen eventually fought each other. Wyndham and Flair, Luger and Flair, Luger and Anderson. I think even Arn and Tully might have been involved in a match somewhere on an indie show or something. You know what I mean? So I understand that they wanted to cause some small rift in the horsemen of it only being Flair and Arn at the time because, Roma was just being Roma. But I like the feud. I didn't like the ending of it, but we won't get into that. I like the feud though. I like that they made these two guys go finally go at it.
I'm of the opposite. I don't, and I have never been a fan of or I guess I won't say never been a fan of, but rarely does it even work for me in wrestling when brothers feud with each other.
Right, I get it.
I don't know. I've never like the Steiners.
Right. The only one that ever worked was Owen and Brett.
Yeah, Owen and Brett worked.
And it almost got ruined by kicking his leg out of his leg. To
a certain extent, Matt and Jeff worked when they broke up.
Yeah,
But
I liked it better in TNA than I did WWE.
But yeah, but I don't know. And again, getting in the weeds.
No, I understand what you're saying, though.
It was like, to me, it's like Arn and Flair were the nucleus.
Right.
And yeah, sure, everybody else broke off or everybody else feuded with each other or whatever. But it just, to me, Arn Anderson and Ric Flair should have just always been. And this doesn't last long, folks. For those of you that don't know the history, they realize quickly this doesn't work. But yeah, but anyway,
like you said, brothers shouldn't fight each other, and they should. It's like I was just gonna, before you even brought that up, I've been like, Archie, it would be like me and Nate having a fight.
Right. I'd be upset about it. I'd try to pull you apart. I agree.
That's never gonna happen.
Right.
Like I'm his Arn. You know what I mean? Like I got his 6. I don't care if I'm not as successful as he is. But if anybody tries to take this shit away from him, I'm knocking my fucking ass.
Oh, of course.
And it's not that we can't have our spats or whatever, but we're never gonna like have a knocked, as Brett would say, a knockdown dragout.
Look, I got two younger brothers, and I have a sister who's only 1 year younger than me, and I understand what you guys mean. I can talk about my brother, and I can mess around with him, and I love him, and I can do what I want. But at the end of the day, I ain't gonna let nobody get at him. But also, I would never let it come to us feuding. Yeah, we're gonna have our arguments, we're gonna have our problems. But in wrestling, it's always, I mean, even in modern day, we got Rey Mysterio about the feud with Dominic. You know what I mean?
That.
So
I
hate it too. But I hate it for other reasons. But that's fine. But in this regard, the reason I liked it is because they finally allowed Arn Anderson to say the truth. I held off on becoming a world champion because of you. I kept myself in the background because of you. I was protecting you, and you're still shitting, and now you're shitting on me the way everybody else did. So I dug Arn at this point somewhat more than I liked Ric Flair.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
the next match we get here is it's a stinker for sure.
Yeah.
We have Craig Pittman, and he is wrestling Cobra.
Yeah, we got Bogus Sting versus Rock from that TV sitcom.
Yeah.
The of note here, to distract Cobra as he is supposed to be heading to the ring, Craig Pittman sends out a private, which is actually Prince Iakea. If anybody noticed,
I didn't notice that. Wow.
Yeah. It's Prince Iakea, but at this point he's playing Craig Pittman's privates. But anyway, Craig Pittman repels from the ceiling, and makes short work of Cobra, who, of course, as Aaron alluded to, is fake Sting, Jeff Farmer.
You know what else he repels?
Viewers, yeah.
Wrestling fans.
I don't know. Anybody got anything on this thing?
I had a problem with this entire feud because Craig Pittman came in, and I get it. He was this bullish, drill sergeant, and he was basically Buddy Lee Parker, but a little taller. And he was beating everybody up, or doing what he was doing, and then all of a sudden this strange message started to come true, and you deserted me, and I want my revenge, and that to me should have made him the face in all of this then, because someone was trying to come and get him. But then here comes Jeff Farmer as Cobra, and then they have a meaningless feud, and then Jeff Farmer goes away, and Craig Pittman all of a sudden ends up with Teddy Long. So this did nothing for anybody.
All I was gonna say is, at this point, Sting was watching backstage and realized he's got something with that coming down.
Yeah, coming down from the ceiling thing. There's something there. I don't know.
I like him coming down.
and I think that guy looks like me.
Right. We might be able to use this somewhere down the line.
Nate, and this will be my last note on the match. When you were talking yesterday about, and I won't add this to my list because I'm going to talk about it here, but like shitty outlandish WCW entrance music.
Mhm.
About code.
Yeah, Morse code.
Morse code.
But yes, like Aaron said, Cobra coming down to Morse code was silly. This whole thing is silly.
I think this was the shortest match on the card. It was like 8 minutes.
Yeah, and it was actually only like 2 minutes of a match. Everything
Right.
it was
Right.
the
You really didn't need more than that for this. You could have
Honestly, they should've-
squeezed it in there quicker.
Mark, they could have put this on main event instead of, and they could have maybe put Alex Wright and Eddie Guerrero on the pay-per-view.
Right.
You know?
When you
Mhm.
said that Guerrero was on the pre-show stuff, I was like, they should have saved that for this because
Right.
that's more solid.
right. All right,
this
so
was a solid.
What?
Solid dude. This was a solid.
Yeah, solid deuce.
Dude. My connection any better? I don't know.
not really. But
Ugh.
up next we get Mr. Wonderful
Oh my god.
Oh, God.
and Gary Spivey.
Yep.
Gary Spivey is
No relation to Dan Spivey.
No, and Gary Spivey is a ridiculous human being.
From the
Like-
psychic hotline.
Mhm.
I love how Mr. Wonderful says the worst acting in the world. Gary Spivey of the Psychic Companions Network? Like, who talks like that? But Gary Spivey with his weird and okay, I don't know, guys. This is me. So I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, I forgot about this Gary Spivey motherfucker.
Me
So-
too.
I got on the internet and I started researching some Gary Spivey, and he's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And people take him seriously as like a psychic and a medium. They
Yep.
they take him
Does he
seriously.
still have that hairstyle?
Dude, here's the funniest
It's
part.
bigger.
Here,
It got bigger.
here's the punchline. As he's gotten older, he wears
It's gotten
bigger
bigger.
wigs. So it's like the afro.
So it's
has
an
grown.
afro, right?
Yes. No, seriously. It's like it's gigantic.
It didn't even look like an afro because you could see through it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like all together hair. It
And
looked
it was
like a cage.
It was perfectly coiffed.
Right.
Like, you know that, remember that scary movie where the fucking state trooper's hat keeps getting bigger and bigger every
Yeah.
scene?
Yeah.
That's what his fucking afro's like.
So
That's great.
But of all the people to give Paul Orndorff back his killer instinct,
The whole thing was he was like, I'm not feeling much like Mr. Wonderful.
yeah.
do you guys at this moment, do you guys have access? Like, could you look at our Facebook group chat while we're talking?
Yes.
No, I don't have it.
Oh, darn it. Well, Mark, here it comes. A modern day picture of Gary Spivey
Oh, that ain't fair.
and his
Believe me, I've seen it.
That ain't fair. I'll look it up later.
It is gigantic. But yeah, so the gist of this is that Mr. Wonderful's doubting himself, but now Gary Spivey's here to get him his confidence back. And Gary
He looks like
Spivey
a
is said,
toilet cake,
what'd you
like a
say?
urinal. He looks like a urinal cake.
Yes, he does.
Oh my god, he looks like that dog off of Secret Life of Pets.
Oh God. That
I'm
was good.
dead serious.
That's good. That was good, Mark.
Oh,
Thank you,
shit.
grandkids, for watching that one. Now I won't unsee that one.
Right?
Nothing like, yep, you'll be watching that movie like, that's Gary Spivey of the
That's
Psychic
Gary
Companions
Spivey.
Network.
That's good shit.
You know what, Nate? You know what also bothered me about this segment is didn't Paul Orndorff eventually end up with the assassin after this?
No, he was with the assassin before this.
Before this, okay.
Yes.
No
Because
wonder
actually,
he wasn't feeling
this-
like Mr.
at-
Wonderful.
at this point, we're actually very close to the end of his in-ring career. We're
No,
very
but wait,
close.
he already teamed with Roma, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's like we're like 2 months away from when the Horsemen give him the spike pile
When him
driver
and
and put
Pillman
him
get
out.
into it. Yep.
Yeah.
Roma's already been fired, I think.
Okay. I wasn't thinking clearly.
But now that we've spent a bunch of time on that silly segment, Mr. Wonderful getting his. One other note that I had about it though is I never realized this before, but if you listen to Gary Spivey during this, he's actually giving you the lyrics for what Mr. Wonderful's new song is going to be.
Oh, the Wonderful.
Yes, because he's like, you're Mr. Wonderful, Mister Wonderful, and he kind of. So anyway, he's doing a precursor. Up next is another train wreck.
Yes.
It is the WCW TV title match. A guy that never should have had a belt in the first place, Renegade, against Diamond Dallas Page.
That's Dollar Tree Ultimate Warrior.
Should never even been a fucking wrestler.
I don't even know if he's Dollar Tree Ultimate Warrior. He might be Wish.com Ultimate Warrior.
I think what happened with that guy. What was it?
Pakistani supermarket.
There you go. 49 rupee.
like the toys we're seeing where it's like Robo Police.
Yep, exactly.
It's like RoboCop's head on like a fucking stormtrooper body.
So his name would be Ultimate Man.
Yeah. But I was gonna say, or it's like those wrestling figures you see that are just called Wrestler or whatever, and it's like the figure's meant to be Chris Benoit, but it has a mustache or
right,
like,
or crooked eyes,
like the machine
in his eyebrow.
Like the machine put the toy together wrong in the manufacturing plant. The fucking Pakistan.
Well, Pakistani Warrior fights Diamond Dallas Page here. For the
Pakistani Warrior probably really is a wrestler, but
right.
The TV title. And then not to mention, all of this is terrible because also on the outside is Max Muscle.
Jesus,
forgot he
existed.
Corner of DDP. The only good thing out here is Kimberly.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my point. I put. All right, these are my. Am I still choppy?
Yes.
A little.
Sorry, guys.
You're all right. Don't worry about it.
But my notes are Jesus fucking Christ. The most part of this match is Kimberly Page. How many fucking gimmicks does DDP need? He's got he's got things and t-shirts and fucking stogies. It's like, settle the fuck down. And it's basically a former manager versus a dancer. What the fuck is going on?
At this point, he was like, bring out Kimberly. Bring out Sullivan, too. I'll show you something more entertaining than this shit.
And then my last note is, remember when the TV championship actually went to people that were good?
The bad part about all of this is the Renegade beat Arn Anderson for the TV title.
Sure did.
So the Renegade is the reason there was a problem between Arn and Flair in the first place because Arn had nothing to do.
And here's
he beat. Can I was going to say one. Arn was supposed to lose the belt to him, and Bischoff wanted to do it in 10 seconds.
Yep.
And Arn said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to lose to some guy in 10 seconds. If he wants to win the belt, he's going to have to work. So they did 10 minutes, and it was trash.
Yep.
And Bischoff looked at Ric Flair and was like, see, told you we should have just did it in 10 seconds. Flair was like, you shouldn't have did it at fucking all.
Right.
Walked away from him.
And this whole thing is Hulk Hogan's fault, and here's why.
Yep.
Here's why. For those of you that don't know, Hulk Hogan had an obsession with getting his win from WrestleMania 6 back.
Yep.
Over the Ultimate Warrior. And then they couldn't come to terms to have the Ultimate Warrior come to WCW. So literally his idea was they were going to bring this fucking chode in. They were going to dress him up like the Ultimate Warrior, do everything but call him the Ultimate Warrior, have him be Hogan's friend. Then he was going to turn on Hogan, and Hogan was going to beat him. Hence, Hogan was going to get his win back against the Ultimate Warrior by beating a guy that's not the Ultimate Warrior. It's fucking ridiculous.
The thing
It
that
sounds
always
quite familiar though. Like they did that with Sting. Except for it wasn't, getting a WrestleMania moment back.
The best thing I ever remember though about happening with Renegade was when Jimmy Hart turned to the Dungeon of Doom, and Renegade I think took on the Giant. The Giant beat him in 8 seconds, and then Jimmy Hart came in the ring with a wet towel, wiped the R off of the Renegade's face, said, "Now you're just Rick. Now you're just Rick." And then they went to commercial. And the Renegade was never to be seen again after that. And then, sadly, he committed suicide not that long after.
Yes, and that's bad. That's awful. We're talking about the guy as a wrestler, not a person, folks. But, but yeah, DDP wins this match with a diamond cutter, wins the TV title from Renegade.
Thanks to Max.
And thanks to Max. Up next, really good match.
Yes.
The Harlem Heat against the WCW Tag Team Champions Dick Slater and Bunkhouse Buck. Lots of good stuff going on here. Not only are the 4 wrestlers great and have a great tag match, but I am a huge fan of Sherry and Parker. And all of that.
Their storyline was fantastic. Them getting
so
together. There was even a callback to main event earlier in the night because Buck and Slater cost the Nasty Boys the match to the American Males. So it helped in this match later on. And I have to say one other thing. Sherry just kept getting prettier and prettier with age. She was a knockout in this match. Mm-hmm. The outfit, the hair, everything about her. So,
well, yeah, that's why Carl Parker wanted that nappy dugout.
Right.
Okay. There's a thing we talk about a lot when we talk about modern wrestling, and especially like the approach of Vince and anything like Tony Khan, whatever of the past, at least definitely the past decade, about horrible comedy in wrestling.
This wasn't one of them.
But that's what I was about to say. When we talk about how there is a place for comedy in wrestling,
right?
Think something like Colonel Robert Parker and Sensational Sherry,
right,
is what comedy in wrestling. That's how you do comedy in wrestling. It's funny, but it's believable,
right?
And in the end, there's an end game to it where it's not just making these people look like a bunch of fucking morons,
Right.
It was also done tastefully where nobody was demeaned, really.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like now they, put it all out there like this, and the more
Colonel Parker came out of this storyline,
it is.
Colonel Parker came out of this storyline looking like a pimp because then Medusa wanted him too afterwards. So damn,
my fried pie.
So,
by all accounts in real life, Rob Fuller's dick has an elbow. Totally gigantic.
Well, a part from this match that I thought was funny, and he was like, "What a knee by Dirty Dick," and I'm like, "What part's the knee?"
And at this point, Dick Slater was still talented and everything, but he looked like a lunch lady.
Yes. And when he cried, he looked uglier. When he cried, he looked uglier because he was always like had that sad face, and it just kept getting uglier and uglier as time went on.
What do you feel about losing your title tonight, Dick Slater? Hoagies and grinders, navy beans. Meatloaf sandwich. The another note that I have here, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but Harlem Heat was very tight with Sid Vicious.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't he actually get them their start?
Yeah, he met him and was like, "You guys should be in the business because you're big, you're brothers."
One of my notes here is something that they picked up from Sid. If you notice, what do they do that Sid does, Archie?
What?
When they're coming down the aisle, they're cutting a promo.
Oh yeah.
You know, and
That's
Sid
a
always
lost
did
art.
that.
That's
You know,
a lost
Sid,
art.
when they're coming down the aisle, they're talking to the camera. You know,
Yeah.
and Sid always did that too. And I was watching this, and I never picked up on it before. You know, and I was like, damn, Harlem Heat probably learned that from Sid. You know, or something they picked up from Sid anyway.
Sound like neck bones, Jack.
Yeah.
Ain't no thing but a chicken wing on a string.
Call your mama, let her know we're about to wrestle. Yeah, just
Right.
I mean,
right.
that's something Sid. You know, Sid would always cut the promo coming down the aisle. So
You might be right. You
just
might
a
be
little,
right.
just
And
a
that's a
little
lost art. You
observation.
don't see wrestlers doing that anymore. They just walk to the ring or run.
They got to hit their over choreographed pose and stuff.
Right.
To his credit, John Cena does it. But anyway.
Yeah, but he's John Cena.
Well, that's because he's a smart worker and knows what he's doing.
That's what I meant by John Cena.
Like I said, this match is really good. There's some great stuff in it. I don't know if anybody has any specific spots, but the Nasty Boys come out toward the end and hit Dick Slater with his own boot.
Looked a little stiff, too. Because some spit came out of his mouth when they hit him.
With these guys, it's going to be stiff.
I was just saying, like, no one else going to say anything. Like, oh, he hit Dick. That's a little stiff.
That's a little stiff.
Come on now.
There's some spit came flying out of his mouth.
I know I got a copy connection. You guys are going to have to pick this shit up. Come on now.
Well, the Harlem Heat, because of that, win the tag team championships. All in the meantime, while this is going down, Colonel Parker and Sherry are in the other ring.
Smooching.
Doing like the greatest comedic makeout session you've ever seen. It's fantastic.
I loved Bobby Heenan on commentary during this because Tony Schiavone's going, what are they going to do in that ring? What are they doing? And Bobby goes, they're going to kiss. And I'm like, yeah, of course they are. Bobby knew. You know?
It's like,
the only other note I have is, and I'll go to my grave saying this, is Jimmy Golden, Bunkhouse Buck, super underrated.
Definitely.
In my opinion. As a worker, as a talent, as a character, that fucking dude is great.
As the dad of Jack Swagger.
The after-match interview is great.
Oh, God, yeah.
First of all,
give it to him with both barrels.
Well, I mean, first of all, Gene Okerlund, you know, is great here. He's like, he goes, of course, Bunkhouse Buck and Dick Slater are confronting Parker about being love struck, you know, struck by the love bug, I think is how they put it.
Mm-hmm.
And Gene Okerlund's great because he goes, I had to write it down. He goes, look at you, Parker. You look disgusting because he's all sweaty and anyway. And another thing that I had to say was it must be also, Mark, you can tell me. I mean, I know because my wife's from Kentucky, but there's so many things because Aaron and I are from Ohio, but we were raised in the ghetto. All right. And then there's so many common things between the South and the ghetto. And one of them is Colonel Parker uses the expression here. He says he's going to make sure Buck and them get the title back. And that's a ghetto expression, like Craig and them, you know, like
right.
He's like, and there's only one other partner, Slater's, but he didn't say Buck and Slater. He said Buck and them. I'm going to make sure Buck and them get the title back.
Well, I try telling people that all the time, that there is not a very big difference between like redneck, other than like the music and maybe the clothes, there's not a big difference between like redneck living and ghetto living. There's not a big difference.
I agree with that.
Nope.
At some point, there's a car with tires on it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
There's fried chicken.
There's fried chicken. There's
like the vernacular, you know, the
right.
Like you said, Craig and them, Buck and them. Like it's very similar.
I like when he was like, I done got serious about that woman.
Yeah.
You all
I done got serious about that girl.
you all don't understand. I got serious about that girl over there.
A little fried pie.
Now, my favorite comment of the whole night, though, again, Bobby Heenan, as they were walking up the aisle, getting to the Gene Okerlund, Bobby Heenan said, "Had she kissed Gene like that, he would have disintegrated."
Yes,
Yeah.
I said. No, he said he said he would have
would
expired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he would have expired. And then you pan to Gene Okerlund's face, and he's just like, "Really, Bobby?"
All right. So now we move on. Mean Gene interviews Arn Anderson, an impassioned promo from Arn.
Yes.
Arn is an underrated promo guy. When people talk about the best promo men in the business, they don't talk enough about Arn Anderson. I would say Arn Anderson is as good a promo as Ric Flair, just in a different way.
You know the saying, Nate, speak softly and carry a big stick?
Mm-hmm.
That's Arn Anderson to me, because even when he was yelling, he was telling you something important. It wasn't just yelling for the sake of yelling. And when Arn Anderson spoke, you heard every word. And you knew what he was serious.
And he didn't start out yelling.
Right.
You know?
He would get up to that when he would get passionate.
And how many people can cut a passionate, engaging, intimidating promo while wearing like those glasses? You know what I mean?
Hey, as a kid, I wanted those glasses.
Or when he would wear a fedora.
Yeah.
That I didn't want.
That was back when he would say, "I don't want to toot my own horn, but toot toot."
And also, how can you be scared of a man who looks like a teddy bear?
Apparently, he has a gun, so he's not really a teddy bear. He's a grizzly.
And then we get, of course, the match between Arn Anderson and Ric Flair. One thing I did note. Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
No, just when somebody says the match between Ric Flair and Arn Anderson, that's my natural reaction. It's just to go, and we'll get into the meat of the matter here. But I did think one thing, a very nice touch, was having the wrestlers come out.
Yes.
I thought that was a really nice touch.
You don't see that anymore.
No, and to say this match is so important and so historic that all the guys in the locker room want to come out and watch.
They want to watch. They want to see these two guys work.
Mm-hmm.
They want to watch the masters at play, so to speak.
Sorry, I just thought of this. I just thought of the only way that this would have worked. The only way Arn Anderson versus Ric Flair would have worked. And you know how it would have been? If they would have been able to, and it would have never happened because of everything that happened. This would have only worked if Tully was involved.
Yeah, Tully could have swayed Arn. Yeah,
that's the only person, like Tully being like this guy, because I could see Tully. I can see Tully Blanchard turning on Ric Flair.
It was almost like they were working up to that, right?
If not Tully, could you have done it with Ole?
Yeah, like have
I don't know
Ole come in and then Rick and him
get
some beef, and then Arn's like, "You ain't gonna fuck with my brother."
Yeah, but hold on. If we remember back in the '80s when they were bringing Luger in, and they made that comment about Ole only cared about his son and going to baseball games. Arn turned on Ole pretty quickly back then. You know what I mean? He was there beating the crap out of him when all the rest of the horsemen were. So I don't know if it could have been maybe with JJ or with Tully, but I don't think Ole or any of the other horsemen would have actually gotten Arn to sway.
The match is when I watch the match, I can tell that these two guys didn't want to have this match.
Right.
There is Ric Flair's there, Arn Anderson's there. But it is nothing like what
that was one of them days they dreaded coming into work.
Right.
That feeling when you wake up and you go and you're just like, fuck, I don't want to do this.
The night before you're just sitting there trying to enjoy watching TV or whatever, but you're like,
No, they were on the phone the night before. Are you sure you want to do this? I guess we have to.
Well, in Flair's book, I don't know if you guys ever read Flair's book, but it'll be Flair telling his story, and then it'll be interjected. There will be like comment blocks or whatever of people that were involved in it, like saying their stuff on it, and Arn's in there. He said he puked in a fucking trash can right before he went out.
I'm sure.
He was like, I do not want to do this. This shouldn't be happening. And he was so amped up and nervous about it that he fucking threw up. And then he had to go out there and wrestle Ric Flair. It's like, Jesus Christ, I don't want to do this.
You could tell they were both, I guess the best way to put it, were wrestling with kid gloves on.
Mm-hmm.
Like not trying to hurt each other or risk something. So they were, a little more, they were trying to take care of each other a little too much, to
Right.
make sure both looked good but didn't do anything wrong.
They were both like, "This is my road dog. I don't want
Right.
to do this."
Right. Well, the match goes down. Like I said, it's. I don't have a lot of notes on it. It was almost awkward to watch them
I
wrestle
noticed
each
one
other.
thing too, though, Nate, which
Mhm.
really I think was the right move. I mean, or it should have been the move going forward after that. Arn comes out to the ring to somewhat booze. Flair comes out to obviously cheers because Flair
Mhm.
was a face back then. But then halfway through the match, the fans start popping for Arn.
Right.
And it's almost like they did a switch because Flair starts using dirty tactics. So now, even though we know what I'm not going to mention the ending yet because you haven't gotten there. But even though we know what happens, in my opinion, Arn should have been the babyface here because when you hear Arn speak about giving up the world title shots, protecting Flair, being there for him, always being there for him, and never, even though everybody else left, I stayed. You know what I mean? Arn was the face in this picture, but they gave it to Flair.
Right. Well, any notes on the match before we go to the finish?
I just know that I noted that Bobby Heenan wrote that the people at home are staying up out of their rented furniture.
Leaving the air to find that little tidbit. Like, yes, that's my
Bobby
note.
was always gold. You couldn't. There was never a chance. Bobby always took a shot, no matter what.
Yeah.
Brian Pillman gets involved in this match. It kicks Ric Flair in the head, which gives Arn Anderson the victory. And that's one other thing I'll say. The two best things about this are, again, the touch of having the wrestlers want to watch the match. Secondly, if you're going to have your match between Flair and Arn Anderson,
can't be a clean finish.
And the best finish is for Arn to go over.
Yes.
Yes. That was the best decision. If you have to have the match, if you feel you have to do it, Arn going over is the best decision.
Ric Flair could never be hurt by a loss, so it made sense.
The other good thing about it is that we're moving into Brian Pillman being in a fucking role that he should have always been in with.
Right.
A fucking heel. Like when what's the Hollywood Blondes for? Like, why did you ever think, we should make this guy a fucking babyface again?
Right. Right.
Anyway.
Honestly, see, I'm gonna piggyback off Aaron a little bit. Honestly, because I mean, the Horsemen, Flair and Arn, fought the Blondes in a tag match at Clash of the Champions one year. Honestly, the Blondes would have been both of them, both Austin and Pillman, would have been perfect fits to be Horsemen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if this was your natural move of putting Pillman in there, you should have just put the Blondes back together and put them in with Arn and Flair.
Right.
Well, I mean, it was like you said too, though, about the whole thing. If you're going to have the match, it was a smart move for Arn to go over. And like Archie said, it wasn't going to hurt Flair.
Not one bit.
Because at the end of the day, he's still the fucking nature boy.
Right.
Like he said in that last promo that he cut for that match with Jarrett and them, he was like, I'm a big fucking deal. He knew I'm a big fucking deal.
Right.
Like I can give my buddy the rub here and everything's going to be all right because I can still make my money.
Exactly.
Now, Nate, look at the difference too. We talked about this on Aaron's show a couple of nights ago. And we talked about at the beginning of the show, the Hogan era of creative control and the Piper era of creative control during that time. Obviously, Ric Flair had creative control over his character. He's Ric Flair, and he came back to the company a couple of years later. You know what I mean? Only a couple of years ago. I guarantee you, he said, I want to put Arn over.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was unselfish at that point. And he still is, but you at that point, he was like, give Arn the rub. Why not? He's worked for it.
Right. Oh, for sure. Most definitely.
You know.
So now we're heading into our main event here of Fall Brawl. Volume 5. And I want to say this before we get to it, though. One of my favorite things, Aaron knows this, one of my favorite things in the history of pro wrestling, because of the absolute insanity of it, is this Kevin Sullivan video.
See,
this Kevin Sullivan. Nobody said life was gonna be easy, and
I was gonna timestamp it, but without chopping my shit is can't. But yeah,
it's if you haven't seen it, folks, it's fun stuff from Kevin Sullivan.
the Dungeon of Doom. This is my favorite part. Well, when he's standing on his head, it's great. But when he's like, Dungeon of Doom, we got you some posies. But they've expired.
They expired. And then, you go through all this insanity, and then he has that moment where he's just like as evil as he can possibly be. I forget what he says.
We're gonna beat you up. We're gonna kill you.
Yeah,
Like he's standing on his fucking head, against the cage and shit. It's like
he's beating the action figure. He's beating the action figure with the little shovel, and I don't know. It's good stuff. It is good. Good ass Kevin Sullivan stuff. It's like Kevin Sullivan in Florida in the early '80s stuff.
And then when they come back, it's great because Bobby and Tony are sitting there and they're just like, well, all right.
Okay. now that we've watched that shit.
Move into this match. What the fuck was that?
All the good that Sullivan did in his promo gets immediately ripped apart because you go to the Hogan promo with his team and Jimmy Hart starts screaming, because they're born in the USA, baby, and they're going to take it down. And yeah, we're going to do it for the red, white, and blue. And all I'm thinking is, but they're not fighting anybody from another country.
Well, Kamala.
Kamala was from the United States.
He was from Uganda.
No. Okay, what are you going to tell me next? Ming was from where's he's Samoan. So okay, so he's from Polynesia.
Hey, Kevin Sullivan's from the Conch Republic.
Yeah.
My point is, he acted like they were going up against Sergeant Slaughter and Colonel Mustafa. You know what I mean? Nobody should be chanting USA right now.
Yeah, and of course the team is Hulk Hogan, Sting, Randy Savage, and Lex Luger because
Can I say one thing about the Dungeon of Doom?
Go ahead.
And and you guys might say I'm wrong or whatever. The Dungeon of Doom could have worked. And Nate, do you know how the Dungeon of Doom could have worked?
Without Hulk Hogan?
No.
Oh.
The Dungeon of Doom could have worked if they would have did it like they did it, like Kevin Sullivan did his shit in Florida.
Well, yeah. Yeah,
it wasn't like cartoonish. It was just this collection of fucking freaks.
Right.
You know what I mean? That would have worked, but with them being like in the dungeon and the water's hot, but it's cold.
Right, the water's hot. It's not even hot.
There's no Hulkamaniacs here.
Yeah, but if that would have just been them, this cavalcade of freaks, it would have worked.
But it could have still worked with with them being in that dungeon. But the fact that they made Ming put on a dragon helmet. and Brutus Beefcake paint himself up like they did. Yes, no, you know what I mean? And being the Zodiac and the Shark being dressed like a shark. I mean, his name could have still been Shark, but they didn't have to put fins on the guy's face and write on his forehead Shark.
Vader wanders into the dungeon or the dungeon or whatever it is, and he's in his tights and shit. And then, it's like their dungeon world is at the arena because you've wandered into it right after you've had a match, and it was just all so fucking surreal. It was ridiculous.
But if it would have been like promos at like the stage or whatever, like it was in Florida, it would have worked. For the most, it would have still been bad, but it would have been
more at least a little more believable. Yeah,
right.
But yeah, this is by far, and there are some talented guys in this match. Don't get me wrong, but this is by far the worst War Games match ever. And this is not. This is like cartoony Hulk Hogan and his cast of merry characters
Fuckheads.
in the
Right.
War Games. It
Right.
just, oh man, what a terrible use of War Games.
And Savage doesn't trust Luger, but Sting's given Luger. This is when Sting originally started backing up Luger, and Vader just exited the company, which I think Vader would have been great in the match. You know what I mean? And then it was just I don't know. And then like I said, you have all these guys for the Dungeon of Doom dressed up like these movie monsters, but not scary at all. And then Hogan and his crew are dressed up for war.
Yeah, with camo face paint and shit.
But Hogan went so far as to put it on his damn bald spot. Just one strip of it looked like he had a skid mark on his head. You know what I mean? So
In real life, I'm trying to think of like I'm like imagining Randy Savage and Haku like looking across the ring at each other, being like, "Really?
right. We came here for this.
I mean, like they had the stars aligned, but they didn't shoot the moon on that one.
No. And
You know
I
what
mean,
I'm
I guess even though it's, again, I said this, none of this should have ever happened in the War Games environment. I guess the one thing where they showed us some forgiveness, because, you know, a War Games match is supposed to be like 40 to 45 minutes.
Right.
Imagine if this would have went that long. At least this only went 18 minutes.
Right. They hurried it along.
You goddamn right they did, because that would have, I mean, this already stunk. That would have stunk sideways if they would have tried to make that like the normal length of a War Games match.
Now, riddle me this. After the ending of the match, we know what happens. Why didn't that happen before the ending of the match? They're the Dungeon of Doom. They're heels, right? Now, we've all seen Bad Blood, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, when Kane rips the door of the cage off, right? Why couldn't the Giant come out and rip the door of the damn cage off and get involved in the match? And help the Dungeon of Doom?
Oh, yeah. There's so much wrong with this.
You know what I mean? It could have still ended. It could have still ended in a Hogan win, but yeah, at least you could have involved the main aspect of the feud: the Giant, the son of Andre, and Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a Giant got involved in this match.
Well, okay, so
you watch a different one than me, damn it.
Zodiac submits to Hogan, which ends the War Games, which means Hulk Hogan.
That's the last note I have is
Hogan.
What did you kill it after that?
Because
I'm saying I was drinking during that.
Oh, okay.
And the last note I have is winner after Hogan butt fucks Ed Leslie into submission. So
after
did the move he was butt fucking him?
The stipulation was that if Hogan's team won, he got 5 minutes alone with Kevin Sullivan inside the cage.
And that's even cartoonier.
Yes. So we proceed with that, and then the Giant comes out.
Which, correct me if I'm wrong, Nate, or rather answer me this question. Why the hell did Sting, Savage, and Luger leave ringside?
Right. Yeah.
Shouldn't that have been the celebration
the Giant
for all
was
of
coming.
them? Yeah, no. But I mean, they literally went to the backstage so far, apparently, that the Giant made it all the way to the ring, opened the door, and destroyed Hogan.
And did the most cartoony
neck break.
It was like that? It was actually worse than Zeus.
Right.
That's saying something.
It looked like he gave him a chiropractic realignment.
Yeah.
Instead of breaking his neck.
And I like Paul White. Don't get me wrong. But
this wasn't his fault.
No, it wasn't his fault. It was just
like
so
Hogan should have been like, "Hey, thanks, brother."
Right.
Yeah.
Did it crack? Yeah. See you next Tuesday.
Good. Yeah.
God damn, dude.
You really are the son of my brother.
That's Paul White. Thanks, brother.
Well, it's the chiropractor.
That would have hit so different.
You know,
he
right?
hit it, you're gonna get this. He hit it, and then Hogan was like, "Oh, I'm pain free. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3.
You got to be from
So,
Toledo, Ohio to get that one.
He does that. Sullivan starts motioning that here come Sting, Luger, and Seven. I mean, what did they go to catering? And then according to Tony Schiavone, the Giant is the biggest wrestler he's ever seen. Mind you, Andre the Giant was in WCW for a little while. Didn't wrestle, but he did make appearances.
Well, Andre the Giant was also in the WWF when Tony was there in '89.
Right, right. And Andre, I believe, was 7'5".
Yeah.
He was billed at 7'4".
Okay, so call him 7'3", 7'4". And to this day, we still don't know if the Giant is 7'2" or 7 foot. Because him and Kevin Nash used to come right up to each other's heads. You know what I mean? Right to eye to eye. So
it's like some things in marriage. Some things you're just never gonna figure out.
You know? But this is my point though. Okay, he's the biggest wrestler that Tony Schiavone's ever seen. He just killed Hulkamania in one foul neck break, or whatever you want to call it. And then Sting, Lex Luger, and Randy Savage are scaring him off. Shouldn't he have just beat the hell out of all three of them? And I mean, you want to establish a star, let him take out all four of your baby faces.
I don't know. You seen how crazy March could get?
But don't even get me started on that. It was just a weird ending.
It was. And like I said, I mean, overall, I would say that at the end of the day, of some of the turd shows that we've watched in reviewing for things for this pay-per-view is a mixed bag.
Right.
I actually gave it 2.5 out of 5.
I'd go 3 out of 5.
If I was thinking about it before I watched it, I probably would have said, "Oh, this is gonna be like a 1-star show."
Oh, I went in with no hope. I was like, "Oh God, if this is as bad as the other ones," because I've watched them all, even though I didn't appear on one of them. I've watched them all, but I went in with no hope, and then I watched Johnny Bad versus Pillman. Went, hey, wait a minute, So
there were
the good outweighed the bad.
There were 2 bad matches. Like just 2, like this is trash, and it was DDP and Renegade, and then the War Games match. I don't even count Cobra and Pittman as a match.
Right.
So I honestly was like, this isn't as bad as I remember, but that fucking War Games match, it's the downfall of War Games. Like after when
on the WCW side,
it's like that's the one cool thing you still have left, and you fucked it up. Like they bashed. Like we'll talk about it later. I'm sure there'll be other shows we talk about, but they start fucking with the War Games, and it doesn't work. It's like don't fuck with something that works.
Mark, your final opinion on this show?
I had to be right there with you, 2.5. Like, when you think War Games, this was way underwhelming of what you would expect.
Oh yeah.
I'm like,
this is War Games.
I was like, I know we watch some pretty crappy stuff sometimes, but this was like, holy fuck, am I gonna stay awake to the end?
I just really thought of something. Like I didn't even put this in my notes. I just thought of it. This War Games match got produced, and sitting in the backstage area is Arn Anderson, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, and JJ Dillon. Imagine what they're thinking. Well, no, JJ wouldn't have been there. So it's Arn, Flair, and Dusty are sitting back there, and they're like, "This is the fucking War Games."
Dusty's like, "This ain't my War Games."
Yeah, this is not what I envisioned, brother.
Yeah, not funky like a monkey, brother. This is not good.
I don't jive well with this.
Well, that is it. War Games, the Fall Brawl 1995 show is in the books. The next show we're going to talk about, and the last one in this series of crappy shows that we're discussing, is WWA Eruption.
Oh no, I will not be here for that.
What?
I promise. I will. I might be busy that day. I don't know.
Well, I told Nate the only way to end is like the best way to end is on an eruption. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Fine, I'll be there.
It just depends on which end that eruption's coming out.
Oh God. Well,
You don't want to end
definitely
on you don't want to end on a fizzle. You want to end on an eruption.
everything about the WWA was an eruption out of the ass.
Yeah, so this
It was
is
the
probably
shits.
going to be diarrhea cha-cha-cha.
Oh yeah.
Well, I will go around the horn here as we always do for parting words. Archie, any parting words for our listeners this week?
Please do me a favor and go ahead and keep continuing listening to If You Smell What the Arch is Cooking. I'll be recording my next episode very soon, talking about the Survivor Series and all things wrestling. And please, if you don't mind checking out my new show, the Nothing But Trouble podcast, where myself and 7 of my lifelong friends talk about everything except for wrestling.
Yes. It's a really good show. You should check it out for sure. It is available everywhere you can find your favorite podcast, except Apple, because I'm still waiting on those motherfuckers as usual.
Fuck
but
Apple.
anyway,
Fuck Apple.
Mark, any parting words this week?
Let's hope this eruption is not as bad as this Fall Brawl.
It's going to be worse.
Oh, my friend.
It's worse.
So this will be pure torture. Gotcha.
This is the worst that
It's still not. It's still not worse than fucking New Blood Rising, though.
I don't know about that.
New Blood Rising is the worst fucking pay-per-view ever.
All I can say is bring a towel.
Oh,
Don't forget to bring
gonna have to clean that eruption up, huh?
Yeah.
I ain't cleaning it.
Aaron, your parting words can't bring a towel. So why don't you give some parting words?
Can't bang, bring a towel.
My parting words are like I say all the time: support everybody's podcast, listen to all these guys' shows. If you don't want to listen to mine, that's fine. I just do mine because it gives me something to do. But every show on the WrestleNet radio is really good, and I keep saying it all the time. The best way to support a podcast that you like is word of mouth. Get it out there, share it with your friends, rate it, review it, and comment, and just help a brother out. Put it out there. Let everybody know. We're not pretentious. We don't think we're better than what we are. We just know we're as good as we are. If that makes sense.
He just channeled his inner Colonel Robert Parker. Help a brother out.
Yeah. help out Nate and them.
I like it. Nate and them.
And if you and we don't mind interacting with y'all, so just holler.
Nope.
Put a fucking ask us questions. We don't give a shit.
Right.
That's what the page is there for.
Yeah. So just support it.
Lots of stuff coming up in 2023. I am currently.
Sorry, that's the other thing I was going to say, guys. Support our shit, and we'll support yours. If you put support out towards us, we'll help support you. Every fucking person has a goddamn podcast. So maybe if you just show us a little love, and you got a show, and it doesn't have shitty audio, and it's kind of funny, Nate might pick you up.
Hang on.
That's right.
Hang on. I will not support Joe Rogan and his podcast.
He has no fucking idea who we are.
He might.
So what I'll say is there are lots
If Joe Rogan's podcast was a wrestling dick, it would be Robert Parker's dick.
I don't know.
He's bigger than everybody else's.
He might stumble across this and think he's back on Fear Factor.
Oh God!
I'll shut up now, Nate. Sorry.
Take us out, Nate.
I was just going to say there are lots of big things coming for the WrestleNet Radio Podcast Network in 2023. I.e., I have started working on. We are going to have some video elements as far as YouTube goes. We're going to have some streaming elements as far as Twitch goes. These things are coming. And also, my favorite thing of the year, I sent out the information to all the panelists the other day. The We Can't Wrestle Podcast Hall of Fame is coming, class of 2022.
Woo.
So we're getting that started now. And we have actually a couple of new panelists this year with all the other guys that are on the panel. Aaron, I know you know Chris Zaha. He is going to be on the panel this year.
Fucking Kevin Nash. He's like, Kevin Nash. Fucking Milky 1,000% Kevin Nash. Go ahead.
He's gonna message me when he hears this and be like, "Fuck it, I'm not gonna be on your panel."
Yeah,
Aaron's
I'm done.
Aaron's a dick.
Sorry,
No, he
potato
won't.
head.
No, he won't. Chris has a great sense of humor. He'll be fine. And then, some of you may know who he is. Some of you may not. If you don't, you're missing out. Kurt Brown, Vandal Drummond, is on our panel this
Is it
year.
really?
Yes.
I'm on that fucking show, dude.
No, I don't know. Everybody may or may not appear on the shows. I think Kurt will. Kurt likes to be on podcasts.
Yeah, but I'm just saying when Kurt's on a show, if he's on it, I'm on it. You ain't skipping me with Kurt. So
And-
I'll fucking put PTO in.
But I want to welcome those two guys to the Hall of Fame panel and this year, and looking forward to that. Like I said, the ballots are out. The inductees are being sent to me. I've gotten a few so far. The cutoff for people to send me names is the 23rd of December, so we still have a while to go. And of course, the final tally will be in January. But that being said, we've said enough. We're going to sign off this week, and we hope you'll join us next week for what should be a fun show talking about WWA Eruption. That being said, guys, thank you for joining me. Listeners, thank you for listening. I'm Nate Maxson,
New show.
and we'll see you next week, everybody, on the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Have a great week.